FIA just revealed new major plans for 2026. Shortly after a recent and a significant 2022 season regulation change, the FIA already has some new ideas in place for the next regulation changes. The preliminary objectives for Formula One's 2026 chassis regulations have been laid out by the FIA to be introduced alongside the next generation power unit after a meeting of the F1 Commission. There are 6 targets that the FIA hopes to achieve by 2026, which includes some major changes to the cars, building on what has been achieved through the 2022 technical regulation changes. Number 1. Significantly reduce drag to improve sustainability and efficiency and complement the power unit characteristics. A lower drag will improve sustainability and efficiency. While working with the characteristics of the power unit, the reduced drag will also make the F1 cars more fuel efficient without any loss in horsepower. This means that the teams could use powertrains that rely on hybrid systems and make use of sustainable fuel. The 2026 powertrain unit regulations will be based on 4 pillars. Retain the 1.6-liter V6 engine, increase electrical power to 350 kilowatts, eliminate the MGU-H, and introduce a power unit cost cap. When the hybrid era of the F1 truly began in 2014, one of the most controversial subjects was the MGU-H, or the motor generator unit heat. For the 2026 power unit regulations, the World Motorsports Council has declared that the F1 would keep its 1.6-liter V6 engines, but will get rid of the MGU-H. The MGU-H converts wasted heat into electrical energy, and it's really complex, not to mention expensive. It didn't have much use for car manufacturers like Ferrari to use on the road. Instead, the power limit of the hybrid system would be increased from the current 120 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts, nearly 3 times, in order to avoid a drop in performance levels. These power units are also expected to be much cheaper to produce than the current ones made by Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault, and Red Bull. There will also be an overall cost cap for running the F1 team, as well as for developing the power unit technologies, but there's no limit on how much engine suppliers can spend on the development of their power unit. This is especially good for potential manufacturers who would want to join F1 in the future. That was not up for discussion earlier, but a change as Red Bull sets itself up as a manufacturer. The decision has been made keeping in mind the goal of opening doors for newcomers and making it possible for them to join F1 at a competitive level. Number 2. Maintain and improve on recent lessons learned about close racing and cars being allowed to follow each other. It's next to impossible to absolutely avoid anything that will affect the vehicle in an F1 race due to the basic laws of physics. However, while they may never be able to completely avoid it, they could lessen the possibility to a great extent. In 2022, FIA improved on the ability to follow the car in front without losing traction. In the same way, in making changes in the weight distribution of the cars, or making them less sensitive from an aerodynamic perspective, much could be done. Number 3. Reduce car dimensions, and 4. Reduce or contain car mass. The third and fourth objectives are very similar to each other. Over the last 2 decades, F1 cars have gotten much larger and heavier. The size and weight of the cars have been criticized because of the continuous growth through the years. When comparing the minimum weight of the new era cars with the 2009 cars, it was increased by 31%. The growth in weight and size can be attributed to many factors, such as the newly introduced hybrid engine, addition of the Halo safety device, 18-inch wheels, and so on. In 2008, the cars weighed around 585 kilograms and increased to 691 kilograms when the hybrid engines were introduced. In 2022, the F1 cars weighed a minimum of 798 kilograms, which includes the driver and tires, but not the fuel. Adding in a full fuel load makes the car weigh 908 kilograms. This weight has increased by 46 kilograms from the last season. The original minimum weight for F1's technical rules for 2022 was supposed to be 775 kilograms, but was raised since by first 15 kilograms and then by 2 kilograms more. However, for 2026, the FIA plans to reduce the car size and weight, making them much smaller and lighter, or at least not heavier than what there are now. For this, the focus is on active aerodynamics to reduce drag. This will create 2 drag modes, a high downforce mode with high drag while cornering, and a low drag mode with low downforce that will help the racers along the straight track. 2026 will be the first time changing entire architecture since the V6s were introduced, with simpler rules and better developments in technology. The heavy cars are 2 meters wide and 5 meters long since they were made bigger in 2017 as a part of the plan to make the F1 machinery faster and more aggressive to look at. This doesn't help at all with overtaking. The technology of Pirelli's tires struggled to keep up with the heaviest cars F1 ever had. This led to the only tire supplier of F1 to build tougher tires to match the cars, which are difficult to race and keep in control. This issue, along with the wider and longer cars that do not do well while turning slow corners, made for cars that are not very good for wheel-to-wheel combat. This is the first time that the FIA has made smaller, lighter cars one of the main objectives of the chassis. The dimensions and mass were becoming a problem for a long time, but it was also an effect of other stuff being given more priority. So hopefully, we'll see some real changes in the car by 2026. Number 5. Sustainability. Continue path towards standardization or simplification of strategically selected components for cost-cutting purposes. Expand the usage of sustainable materials or technologies and focus on recyclability. F1 aims to be net carbon zero by 2030. Following next year, the FIA officials have approved the use of 11 slick tire sets instead of 13. Along with looking at the car dimensions, the Commission is also thinking about what the cars are made of. In the journey towards sustainability, F1 wants the team to reuse materials to make new parts instead of making them from scratch out of sustainable materials. McLaren's driver seats are made from an eco-friendly carbon fiber replacement. In 2022, we were introduced to the E10 fuel made from 90% fossil fuels and 10% renewable ethanol from plant waste. By 2026, F1 plans to switch to 100% sustainable synthetic fuel. These drop-in fuels will be made from either carbon capture system, municipal waste, or non-fuel biomass. It won't be necessary for the teams to change their engine to adapt to the new fuel, plus the fuel is estimated to save at least 65% greenhouse gas emissions as compared to petrol. The teams are also committed to various environmental targets and want to build their value as profitable organizations, which means that this target will hopefully be achieved without any disruptions. The FIA also wants to increase the number of standard supply components, which were reduced from the 2022 plans after pushback from teams. Number 6. Continued innovation in terms of car safety, moving towards active and connected safety systems. Improving the safety in F1 has always been on the list for years. Even for the 2026 changes, improvement in safety is a target. There are plans for an active and connected safety system which will use car-to-car alerts in order to prevent crashes. It'll be similar to the sensors that are present in road cars. There's also a probability of introducing emergency brakes in the cars. Another aspect of being looked at is how the cars can absorb crash energy. Making the car smaller while leaving enough room for the car to absorb the crash energy without hurting the driver in the cockpit could be difficult to incorporate, so it might take a lot of work before being finalized. The Commission is also voting for 6 sprint races in the 2023 games, increasing from the 3 of this year, after fans complained that the season was not loud enough. Another change in the mandatory use of helmet cameras for every driver on the track next season. The company, Racing Force, introduced the tiny helmeted mounted camera, which debuted in Formula E in 2020 and Formula 1 in 2021, but this system has only been used on Bell helmets until now, which is also owned by Racing Force. Volkswagen has confirmed that Porsche and Audi will be joining F1 by 2026. It's caused a lot of enthusiasm among the fans, however, not everybody is pleased with the decision. Audi and Porsche, as newcomers, have supposedly been given a wider power unit budget in order to encourage newcomers. The manufacturers will get an extra $10 million for the first 2 seasons and $5 million for the third, as well as a $50 million allowance for capital expenditure projects. This is not the best news for other teams who have been in the race for a long time now. As for now, these objectives are just targets, and it remains to be seen what the FIA will actually achieve by 2026 and how. At least we have an idea of what to expect from F1 by 2026. Are you excited to see the new changes? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Take care.